The room was electric, a charged silence hovering like a storm about to break. Jessica Tarlov leaned forward, her eyes sharp, her tone deliberate as if she were holding the entire nation's doubts on the tip of her tongue. "Ms. Crockett," she began, her voice smooth but edged with skepticism, "how does your law degree prepare you for the challenges you face in Congress?" The question was simple. The weight behind it was anything but. Every ear in the room strained for the answer, every camera lens fixed on the poised figure seated across from her. Whispers threaded through the crowd, a subtle hum of expectation. Some doubted, some were eager to see a misstep. The tension was palpable. Jasmine Crockett's expression was serene, almost meditative. She tilted her head slightly, eyes locking with Jessica's, not with defensiveness but with quiet confidence. In that moment the room felt suspended, as though the world had collectively inhaled, waiting for the exhale. Her hands rested lightly on the table. Not clenched, not rigid, just steady, composed. A visual testament to the discipline that had carried her through law school, through courtroom battles, and now into the national spotlight. Every frame of the camera lingered, capturing a subtle nod, a calm exhale, a smile that hinted at something more profound than a mere answer. The audience leaned in, social media feeds buzzing before her words even left her lips. Clips were already forming in people's minds, tweets poised to explode, fingers hovering over keyboards. Everyone in the room sensed it, the feeling that what she was about to say could shift the conversation, challenge assumptions, and leave critics reeling. Even the skeptics straightened in their seats, sensing the inevitability of something greater unfolding. Jasmine wasn't just answering a question. She was setting the stage for a moment that would ripple far beyond this room. And then, as all eyes focused, her lips parted and a calm, measured voice filled the air. Carrying more than explanation, it carried authority, intelligence, and an unspoken promise that would resonate with millions. The room held its collective breath. In that suspended heartbeat, the line between doubt and belief trembled, and everyone knew that this was not just another interview. This was the beginning of a story that would captivate a nation, and in that moment millions were about to witness something unforgettable. The cameras weren't just capturing an interview. They were recording a moment that could define a political career. Jasmine Crockett had risen quickly in the national spotlight, a young, articulate voice carving a path through a landscape often dominated by entrenched power and cynicism. Every question posed to her carried weight far beyond the studio, stretching into living rooms, phones, and social feeds across the country. Her law degree wasn't merely a line on a resume. It was a symbol of preparation, resilience, and the rigorous training that had honed her mind to navigate the labyrinth of legislation, justice, and public scrutiny. For many, this single question about credentials was about more than academics. It was about trust, authority, and the credibility of someone who claimed to represent the people. Across social media, anticipation had already begun to mount. Clips of the exchange before it aired were circulating, hashtags emerging like sparks in dry tinder. Crockett Challenge trended on Twitter, while comment sections teemed with both skeptics and supporters. Some argued, she's young. Does she really have what it takes? Others countered, finally someone who earned it and isn't just a political puppet. The national dialogue was already alive, a swarm of opinions that would only intensify as Jasmine spoke. Every word, every pause, every measured breath had the potential to validate or undermine years of work. The stakes weren't academic, they were visceral. The credibility of a rising star was on the line, and with it the trust of millions who longed for leadership that was both competent and principled. Even within the room, the pressure was tangible. Journalists scribbled furiously, producers exchanged glances, and the audience shifted in anticipation, sensing that this was more than an interview, it was a test of character. Political analysts had framed this as a defining moment. How a public figure responds under pointed questioning often becomes shorthand for their competence, their temperament, and their integrity. A misstep could be amplified endlessly. A triumph could cement a narrative of authenticity and capability. Jasmine's calm, poised presence was already a counterweight to the mounting scrutiny. But the nation's attention added a layer of gravity that could crush even the most confident. This wasn't just about her. It was about representation, about demonstrating that merit, hard work, and knowledge could stand up to doubt and cynicism. The symbolic weight of her law degree, The very tool she had honed through years of effort became a focal point for a broader cultural conversation. Social media chimed in with every gesture, viewers speculating, sharing, and debating before she had even spoken. The digital world had become an extension of the room, a living audience that demanded accountability, excellence, and clarity. Anxiety mingled with anticipation, pride interwoven with the thrill of witnessing history unfold in real time. And as the question hung in the air, measured and deliberate, the tension thickened. Every viewer, from political commentators to casual citizens scrolling their feeds, felt the same magnetic pull, the awareness that this answer could define perceptions, shift momentum, and resonate far beyond the immediate moment. The stakes were no longer local or personal. They were national, cultural, and deeply emotional. Little did anyone know Jasmine's answer would not just silence critics, it would inspire millions. Jessica Tarlov was no ordinary interviewer. She carried the kind of precision that demanded answers, the kind of scrutiny that could unearth the smallest misstep and turn it into a viral moment. Sharp-eyed and articulate, she had spent years honing her craft in a world that thrived on confrontation, on exposing cracks in confidence, on turning simple questions into moments of reckoning. Her reputation preceded her. She wasn't cruel, but she was relentless, a mirror reflecting the doubts of millions who watched through screens and feeds. To some, she was a guardian of accountability. To others, a figure who could amplify every insecurity of a rising star. The culture she represented was unforgiving. Media scrutiny had evolved into a spectacle, a public theater where every politician, every candidate was weighed, measured, and often found wanting. It wasn't enough to hold a law degree, a record of public service, or even a compelling vision. Every claim, every credential, had to withstand the relentless glare of questioning and the ever-present judgment of a divided public. The digital age had made this scrutiny omnipresent. Cameras, microphones, and social feeds transformed even a calm exchange into a performance for millions. One slip, one hesitation, and clips could spiral across platforms, reshaping narratives in real time. History offered a cautionary tale. Politicians across the spectrum had stumbled under similar pressure. A young congressman once froze on live television when asked about his qualifications. A seasoned senator had faltered when probed about prior legal experience. Analysts dissected every misstep. Pundits replayed clips endlessly. And social media transformed private doubt into public ridicule. The lessons were clear. A single answer could make or break credibility, and the stakes were enormous. For someone like Jasmine, entering this arena meant not just defending a degree, but defending years of preparation, resilience, and vision. The question was as much about competence as it was about perception. Tarlov's style was designed to elicit that very pressure. Her questions were precise, layered, and intentionally pointed. She had a way of framing inquiries that tested not just knowledge but temperament, probing the confidence of her guest while maintaining the appearance of casual curiosity. Her reputation for incisive questioning had earned her both respect and criticism. Some saw her as a necessary guardian of the public's right to know. Others saw a provocateur whose probing could overshadow the substance of the answers she elicited. Either way, her presence carried weight, the kind that demanded more than a rehearsed response, the kind that demanded authenticity, calm, and clarity under fire. Beyond Tarlov herself, the environment she represented was emblematic of a broader tension. The media ecosystem thrived on skepticism, often amplifying doubt toward young, ambitious figures, especially those from underrepresented communities. Every accomplishment could be questioned, every credential scrutinized, every word parsed for weaknesses. Public perception, amplified by digital echoes, often became the battlefield itself. A politician's success was no longer measured solely by legislative victories, but by the ability to navigate this scrutiny with poise, credibility, and integrity. Against this backdrop, Jasmine Crockett's poised presence became more than a personal asset. It became a narrative opportunity. Where others had faltered, she had the chance to rise, to demonstrate that intelligence, preparation, and dignity could withstand relentless questioning. The contrast was stark. The measured, disciplined hero facing a skilled, unflinching interrogator whose role was to expose doubt. This framing heightened anticipation, creating suspense not from malice, but from the stakes themselves. the uncertainty of whether composure and truth could overcome doubt in a world primed for cynicism. And then Jasmine, armed with logic and poise, stepped up to the challenge. Jasmine Crockett's story didn't begin in the glare of television cameras or the polished halls of Congress. It began in classrooms and libraries, in late nights illuminated by desk lamps, in quiet determination that refused to be intimidated by circumstance. From the earliest days of her education, she demonstrated a hunger not just for knowledge but for justice, a drive that would shape her path and define the very essence of who she had become. Her law degree was more than a credential. It was a testament to years of relentless effort, intellectual rigor, and an unwavering belief that preparation was the foundation of influence. Her journey through law school was marked by intensity and resolve. The cases she studied, the arguments she crafted, and the challenges she confronted were more than academic exercises. They were training grounds for the battles she would later face in the public arena. Every precedent she examined, every statute she debated honed her capacity for critical thinking and clarity under pressure. While some saw the rigors of legal education as a barrier, Jasmine approached them as stepping stones, opportunities to sharpen her intellect and solidify the moral compass that guided her every decision. This was a woman who didn't just endure challenges, she transformed them into preparation for leadership. Yet her path was never without obstacles. As a young black woman navigating spaces historically dominated by older, often dismissive voices, Jasmine confronted both subtle and overt forms of bias. Skepticism came not only from opponents but from peers and gatekeepers who underestimated her ability to lead. Ageism whispered that she was too young. That experience was something she lacked. Sexism suggested that her voice could be minimized or dismissed. Media scrutiny magnified every detail, every decision, every public appearance, as if her accomplishments were insufficient until they had survived relentless interrogation. For many, these pressures might have been discouraging, even debilitating. For Jasmine, they were catalysts, fuel for the determination that would propel her forward. Her advocacy was never performative. From early in her career, she championed causes that spoke to the heart of fairness and justice, lending her voice to communities often overlooked or marginalized. She worked tirelessly, blending intellect with empathy, law with lived experience. This was not a politician seeking applause, it was a public servant seeking tangible change. From policy initiatives to courtroom victories, from mentoring youth to engaging in civic dialogue, Jasmine's life became a mosaic of service, perseverance, and impact. Her reputation for diligence, intelligence, and measured judgment spread quietly, a testament to substance over spectacle. Equally defining was her composure. Under pressure, she did not flinch. When confronted with sharp questions, she did not stumble. She paused, considered, and responded with clarity and precision. Her calm presence was not a performance. It was the visible manifestation of years spent cultivating patience, discernment, and self-confidence. Audiences could sense it instantly, a quiet strength that anchored every word, every gesture, every calculated response. This composure set her apart in a world that often rewarded impulsiveness and rewarded spectacle over substance. Jasmine's dedication extended beyond the courtroom and the halls of power. It was evident in her personal discipline, in the relationships she nurtured, in the mentorship she offered, and in the way she carried herself with integrity. Intelligence, poise, and commitment were not abstract qualities. They were living elements of her presence, tangible in every interaction, every decision, every public appearance. Her story resonated because it was authentic. She was both extraordinary and relatable, a figure whose achievements were grounded in hard work, perseverance, and unwavering values. Audiences watching her now could see the culmination of years of effort, sacrifice, and determination. They could see a woman who had earned her place, who had confronted doubt and bias at every turn, and who had emerged not just intact, but elevated. Jasmine Crockett embodied the triumph of preparation, intellect, and principle. She was more than a politician. She was a symbol of possibility, a beacon of what could be achieved when talent met tenacity and conviction. For those who had followed her journey, who understood the obstacles she had overcome, admiration was immediate, visceral, and profound. Every lesson she had learned, every challenge she had endured, every late night and hard-fought victory had led her to this moment. The poised, articulate figure seated before Jessica Tarlov was the product of relentless preparation and unwavering resolve. The stage was set, the audience was watching, and the weight of expectation rested squarely on her shoulders. But unlike so many before her, Jasmine was not merely ready to respond. She was ready to redefine the moment itself. She wasn't just prepared, she was destined for this moment. The atmosphere shifted as the interview moved deeper, the polite tension giving way to sharper scrutiny. Jessica Tarlov leaned in again, her question crisp, deliberate, and loaded with expectation. "Ms. Crockett," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Many young politicians hold degrees yet still struggle when confronted with real-world legislative challenges. How does yours translate into tangible results for the communities you represent?" The question was precise, calculated to probe, and the cameras captured every subtle inflection. It was a challenge, an invitation to stumble or to shine. Across the room, reactions rippled like waves. Some viewers furrowed brows, skeptical of whether experience could truly meet ambition. Others whispered to one another, leaning in with curiosity, sensing the opportunity for a moment of clarity, a demonstration of intellect meeting accountability. Social feeds were already lighting up, anticipating the exchange, with hashtags hinting at doubt, admiration, and debate. The national conversation was being written live, each pause and intonation ripe for replay and commentary. The stakes had escalated from a question about qualifications to a test of authority, composure, and public trust. Jasmine Crockett remained immovable. Her composure was magnetic, drawing eyes and attention not through defiance but through a calm command of the room. When she responded, her voice was steady, articulate, and deliberate. She didn't rush to fill the silence. She measured each word, crafting an answer that was logical, precise, and grounded in both experience and principle. The contrast between her poise and the subtle tension in Tarlov's expression created an almost cinematic tableau. One figure radiating confidence, the other anticipating a crack in that confidence. As she explained the practical applications of her law degree, how courtroom experience, legislative knowledge, and constituent advocacy intertwined to produce measurable outcomes, the crowd's attention deepened. Murmurs of recognition spread quietly at first, then with growing intensity. Analysts and journalists scribbled notes. Cameras captured the nuances of her gestures, and audience members leaned forward, sensing that the response was not just adequate, it was compelling. Skeptics shifted uneasily, their disbelief challenged by the precision of her reasoning and the calm certainty in her voice. The tension was amplified by the rhythm of the exchange. Tarlov pressed further, highlighting scenarios meant to provoke doubt. Yet Jasmine countered each with clarity, drawing on her knowledge and experience. Every example she offered, every insight she provided, was a testament to preparation, intelligence, and composure under scrutiny. It wasn't a confrontation. It was a demonstration of mastery, a subtle dismantling of the doubt that had hung over her from the outset. The audience, both in the studio and online, could feel the shift. The narrative of uncertainty began to dissolve, replaced by admiration and intrigue. Every subtle camera pan caught fleeting expressions of disbelief from skeptics, while supporters nodded, shared quick messages, and captured moments for social media. The room itself seemed to contract and expand with anticipation, hanging on the dialogue that was more than words. It was a test of intellect meeting pressure, of confidence meeting critique. And then, as the back and forth reached its crescendo, Jasmine delivered a particularly pointed, calm, and undeniable answer. It was measured yet decisive, simple yet profound, leaving the room momentarily suspended in awe. The pause that followed was deafening, a collective inhale that seemed to stretch across screens and feeds, across living rooms and offices nationwide. Then came the line that would make millions stop, listen, and cheer. Jasmine Crockett inhaled, a subtle pause that stretched the tension almost to its breaking point. The room leaned in, the cameras holding steady, the lights accentuating every detail. The calm in her eyes, the quiet assurance in her posture, the faint but unmistakable aura of someone fully in command. Then, with a voice that was measured, deliberate, and unwavering, she began to dismantle the doubt that had been hanging over her from the first question. "Every decision I make," she said, "every piece of legislation I support, every initiative I champion, is grounded in a clear understanding of the law, of precedent, and of the communities I serve. My law degree didn't just teach me statutes and case law. It taught me how to analyze, how to anticipate consequences, and how to stand firm when faced with opposition. Her words were simple, yet each carried the weight of preparation, experience, and principle. She outlined her trajectory, years in law school, the cases she had argued, the policies she had helped shape, and the real-life impact those decisions had on constituents. Jasmine's step-by-step explanation flowed effortlessly. She highlighted her approach to problem-solving. First, identifying the core issue. Second, applying legal reasoning. Third, evaluating implications for the public good. And finally, ensuring that the outcomes were equitable and just. Each point was anchored in concrete examples: a local policy reform that protected vulnerable communities, a court case where her advocacy changed outcomes for families in need, a legislative proposal she authored that addressed systemic gaps in justice. Her articulation was precise yet infused with an authenticity that made every word resonate. As she spoke, the room's energy began to shift. Murmurs of curiosity transformed into nods of recognition. The audience, initially poised in polite suspense, began to respond with audible appreciation. The subtle nods and soft exhalations of surprise grew into murmurs of agreement, then into applause that swelled like a tide. Skeptics who had been poised with a hint of doubt now found themselves caught off guard, their carefully cultivated skepticism met by the undeniable clarity and authority of Jasmine's response. The contrast was cinematic, calm, assured intelligence standing resolute against the backdrop of rising disbelief. Cameras captured every micro-expression. The studio feed caught subtle shifts, the quick glance exchanged between commentators, the almost imperceptible raise of an eyebrow, the tightening of lips among those who had expected hesitation, but were now confronted with mastery. Social media lit up instantly, a digital echo chamber amplifying the moment as clips began to circulate within seconds. Tweets hailed her reasoning. Crockett logic trended alongside hashtags celebrating poise, clarity, and integrity. Memes emerged almost immediately, capturing the calm confidence juxtaposed against the astonishment of skeptics. Influencers and political commentators shared clips with captions that ranged from admiration to disbelief. This is how preparation looks. Every word calculated, every point undeniable. When poise meets principle, Jasmine's delivery was not just about content, it was about timing. Strategic pauses punctuated her statements, allowing the room to absorb each revelation. The pauses created cinematic beats, moments where the audience could lean into suspense, where the weight of each example hung in the air, and where the energy in the room shifted with every exhale. Her cadence drew listeners in, the rhythm of her speech reinforcing the logic and authority behind her words. Every well-timed pause became a visual and emotional cue, a signal that this wasn't just a defense, it was a statement of triumph over doubt. What made the moment unforgettable was the contrast between her serene confidence and the growing astonishment of those expecting falter. The very structure of the interview, designed to probe and unsettle, now amplified her success. Each rebuttal, each clarification, each example of expertise was a quiet but unmistakable dismantling of the skepticism that had preceded her answer. The room was no longer a stage for confrontation. It was a showcase of preparation, intellect, and the quiet power of mastery under pressure. Even as applause reverberated, Jasmine maintained composure. She didn't revel in the reaction or allow it to distract from her message. Instead, she continued to frame her response in terms of service, principle, and the responsibilities inherent in public office. Her argument was both self-contained and expansive, addressing the immediate question while illustrating the broader philosophy that guided her career. Intelligence and integrity are not abstract virtues. They are actionable, measurable, and essential to leadership. The digital audience was equally engaged. Clips circulated on social media platforms within minutes. Hashtags amplified her logic, and commentary threads exploded with debate and admiration. People dissected every point, shared highlights, and celebrated her ability to transform what could have been a moment of doubt into a definitive showcase of capability. Influencers praised the precision and calmness of her response, while everyday viewers expressed pride, awe, and validation. Finally, someone who speaks truth with clarity. Poise under pressure, this is leadership. a reminder that knowledge and integrity can silence doubt. As the moment reached its peak, the room seemed to collectively exhale. Skeptics, now confronted by an argument both eloquent and irrefutable, could only watch as the narrative shifted. The power dynamics of the interview had flipped. Where once there was doubt, now there was respect. Where once there was anticipation, now there was awe. Intelligence, preparation, and poise had won the day, leaving an indelible impression on everyone present, and a ripple that extended far beyond the studio walls. In that instant, the contrast between hero and skeptic, between preparation and doubt, could not have been clearer. Jasmine Crockett embodied the triumph of knowledge and integrity over uncertainty and arrogance, a visual and auditory testament to the power of deliberate thought, meticulous preparation, and unwavering calm. The applause, the nods, the murmurs, the viral posts, all of it underscored a simple but profound truth. When intellect and principle meet scrutiny, they don't just survive, they dominate. But the ripple effect of her words was only beginning. Within minutes of Jasmine Crockett's measured, decisive answer, the digital world erupted. Hashtags like Kangry Crockett Logic, Poise Under Pressure, and Leadership Redefined began trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, capturing the imagination of millions. Clips of the interview, perfectly timed and carefully edited by fans and commentators alike, circulated across every platform, replayed and shared with commentary ranging from awe to disbelief. Short-form videos highlighted her calm gaze, her deliberate pauses, and the clarity of her reasoning, turning what might have been a fleeting moment into an enduring symbol of intelligence meeting integrity. Across the feeds, the public's response was immediate and electric. Ordinary citizens expressed pride and admiration. "Finally, someone who proves preparation matters," wrote one Twitter user. "Watching her respond was like witnessing a masterclass in leadership," another commented on Facebook. On TikTok, young viewers created clips overlaying her words with uplifting music, framing her as both relatable and aspirational. Memes celebrated her composure in contrast to the flustered skeptics, emphasizing the victory of logic over doubt and preparation over intimidation. Each share, each comment amplified the narrative, building a digital echo chamber where Jasmine's poise became not just admired, but celebrated. Influencers and media personalities weighed in, lending even more momentum. Pundits dissected her answers on live streams and podcasts, praising not only her knowledge but her ability to communicate it with authority and grace. Political commentators noted that her response transcended the typical scripted media exchanges. It was authentic, persuasive, and unmistakably grounded in principle. "This is how a leader responds under pressure," one analyst remarked. "She doesn't just answer the question, she elevates the entire conversation about what leadership looks like today." Even conservative outlets, while hesitant to overtly celebrate her, acknowledged the precision and composure with which she handled the scrutiny, conceding that the response had been, in every measurable way, a success. Meanwhile, critics who had initially doubted her credentials or questioned her experience found themselves confronted with undeniable evidence of capability. Their reluctance to admit admiration became almost tangible, subtle acknowledgments in interviews and social media posts hinting at surprise and respect. Where skepticism had dominated before, recognition now took root, and the narrative began to solidify. Jasmine Crockett was not only qualified, she was exceptional. A figure whose intelligence and composure could withstand intense public scrutiny and emerge victorious. The ripple effect extended beyond social media and commentary. Community leaders, educators, and activists began citing her example as a model of preparation and perseverance. Young people, particularly women and members of underrepresented communities, shared stories of feeling inspired to pursue their own ambitions with renewed determination. Her victory in that interview became symbolic, a reminder that integrity, knowledge, and calm under pressure are not only admirable traits but tools of real influence and change. As the hours and days unfolded, the conversation continued to expand. News outlets replayed the key moments, framing them as watershed examples of reason and composure triumphing over doubt. Analysts wrote op-eds and blog posts detailing how the interview would be remembered as a defining moment in Jasmine's career. The narrative that had once centered on skepticism had now shifted entirely to one of validation, respect, and admiration. By the end of the first day, Jasmine Crockett's credibility and heroism were firmly cemented. The digital footprint alone, a trail of viral clips, trending hashtags, and social shares, testified to the moment's impact. The broader public conversation had moved. She was no longer merely a rising political figure. She had become a symbol of intelligence, preparation, and dignity, prevailing in an age dominated by cynicism and quick judgment. Communities across the nation shared the story, felt a sense of communal pride, and embraced the affirmation that merit and calm reasoning could hold their ground. Even in the harshest public spotlight, the stage was set, the narrative clear, and the audience's admiration unwavering. The hero had triumphed, but the lesson extended far beyond a single interview, touching a generation of viewers eager for examples of integrity in action. The nation was watching, and the lesson was clear. The moment had passed, but its echoes lingered far beyond the studio walls. Jasmine Crockett's poised, articulate response had done more than answer a pointed question. It had illustrated a fundamental truth about leadership and public life. Preparation, composure, and clear thinking are powerful forces, capable of transcending cynicism and doubt. Her law degree was not merely an academic achievement. It was a symbol of dedication, discipline, and the kind of deep knowledge that equips a person to confront challenges thoughtfully, ethically, and decisively. Millions witnessed not just an answer, but a demonstration of what integrity looks like in action. In a world often dominated by noise, spectacle, and partisan posturing, Jasmine's performance stood as a reminder that intelligence and authenticity hold weight. Her calm reasoning, measured responses, and unwavering focus created a moral resonance that extended beyond politics. People were inspired not only by what she said but by how she carried herself. The combination of confidence and humility, of authority and empathy. The interview became a mirror, reflecting the qualities society often seeks in its leaders: dignity, resilience, and the courage to speak truth with clarity. The broader lesson was unmistakable. Challenges, skepticism, and even outright doubt are inevitable in public life and in personal life. Yet the response to those challenges defines not only outcomes but character. Jasmine's example showed that preparation equips one to meet scrutiny without fear, that knowledge amplifies voice, and that composure under pressure transforms moments of uncertainty into opportunities for affirmation and leadership. Every viewer, from casual social media scrollers to deeply invested constituents, could recognize the value of patience, study, and principled reasoning. Her triumph was not accidental. It was earned, cultivated, and intentional. Beyond the immediate political sphere, the impact was profoundly cultural. Millions of viewers, particularly those from communities historically underestimated or underrepresented, saw in Jasmine a reflection of their own potential. She embodied the idea that identity, talent, and hard work are assets, not limitations, that poise and intellect can coexist with passion and empathy, and that public scrutiny, while intimidating, can become a stage for demonstrating integrity. The applause she received, the trending hashtags, the viral clips, all of it reinforced a larger narrative. The world notices when preparation meets principle. Her answer transcended politics. It inspired young people to pursue their own ambitions with diligence, encouraged women to trust their voices in high-pressure spaces, and reminded the public that reasoned thought and ethical action remain powerful tools in shaping society. Jasmine's performance validated the belief that truth, when communicated with clarity and authenticity, resonates universally, cutting through skepticism and leaving an indelible impression on the hearts and minds of millions. This was more than a personal victory. It was a collective lesson. Audiences felt a sense of emotional catharsis, a surge of hope and pride that reinforced the importance of integrity over spectacle, substance over superficiality, and courage over fear. In watching Jasmine navigate the intense scrutiny with grace and intelligence, viewers were reminded that leadership is not measured merely by ambition or charisma, but by the ability to act thoughtfully, uphold principles, and inspire others through example, because in the end, courage and clarity always speak louder than doubt. Jasmine Crockett's moment of calm clarity had left an unmistakable mark. From the tense opening question to the crescendo of her articulate, evidence-backed answer, she had transformed skepticism into admiration, doubt into inspiration. Her journey, from late nights of study to public service, from overcoming bias to commanding national attention, culminated in a single defining moment that reminded millions of the power of preparation, intellect, and dignity. Every pause, every carefully chosen word, and every gesture of poise had spoken volumes, resonating with viewers across screens, feeds, and communities nationwide. This wasn't just a story about politics. It was a story about courage, resilience, and the strength to stand firm under pressure. It was a demonstration that integrity and reason can triumph in a world that often rewards spectacle over substance. And it was a reminder to each viewer that they too possess the capacity to face scrutiny, doubt, or challenge with calm, clarity, and confidence. Jasmine's example was a call to action, not just in public life, but in everyday decisions, interactions, and aspirations. Now it's your turn. Reflect on the moments in your life where preparation, poise, and logical thinking can make the difference. Celebrate the courage to speak truth, the discipline to act with integrity, and the resilience to rise above doubt. Share this video with someone who needs inspiration today. Comment below with your thoughts and experiences. Let the conversation of courage and clarity continue. Subscribe to join a community that values substance, strength, and principled action. Together, we can honor leaders who show us what is possible and remind ourselves that every moment of preparation and courage carries the power to inspire. Because when intelligence, integrity, and calm meet challenge, the impact isn't just seen, it's felt, shared, and remembered.